Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science, Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here to give you a summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It's currently the eve of October 31st, 2023 in the United States, and the morning of November 1st, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, Israel is now confirming it has identified 240 kidnapped Israelis. These are civilians and IDF personnel that are held in the Gaza Strip by the Hamas movement and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. This number is despite those that have already been released or rescued. The number has gone up because Israel has identified that more missing people are in fact being held hostage. In addition, Hamas's spokesperson of Hamas's military wing, Abu Obaida, stated that in the coming days, Hamas will release several of its hostages who are foreign nationals. Now, this may relate to the recent rumors that Hamas is trying to broker a deal with Russia to release those nationals with Russian citizenship in exchange for possibly some weaponry. Unclear, Abu Ubaida did not state anything of that. He also did reference, though, the Israeli IDF soldier that was rescued yesterday and stated that she was not being held by Hamas and he did not know who she was being held by. This is contradicted by the IDF that said that several Hamas operatives were killed during her rescue. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip. Today, there were rockets and missiles, as every day, that were sent towards the southern parts of Israel and the center of Israel. So major barrages targeted Ashkelon and Ashdod. They targeted Bedouin areas in the south of the country, and the Shfela, the Sharon, Hod HaSharon, Tel Aviv, and a long list of others. These were more intense than in the past couple of days, and several people were injured. Regarding Israel's invasion, there was a substantial increase today of tanks and ground forces that are pouring into the Gaza Strip from a second location. So the first troops came in from the north, and now they're coming in from a different area in the northeast. And Israel published the soundtrack of the attack call of General Yaron Finkelman, who is in charge of the Southern Brigade. This is meaningful because in the past, Israel has a history of publishing the attack call whenever an invasion starts. So this may indicate that as far as Israel is concerned, now the invasion is actually beginning. In addition, there were over 300 air raids reported throughout the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. Some of these were quite notable. A brigade commander of Beit Lahia, Nassim Abu Ajina, was assassinated, and it was reported that he was in charge of some of the specific attacks on October 7th, specifically in the kibbutz of Erez and Nativ HaSara. In addition, there was a substantial bombing in the Nusirat area, in which 40 people were confirmed killed. In addition, there was a major bombardment in the Jabalia refugee camp, which caused the collapse of an underground facility underneath the building that was attacked, which subsequently caused the collapse of several buildings in the area. The target of this bombing appears to have been Ibrahim Biadi, who is a brigade commander in Hamas's Jabalia unit, which is actually the unit that has been carrying out the ground offensive against Israel's invasion. He was assassinated, and it is reported that he played a critical role on October 7th as well. Hamas is reporting that there are over 50 people killed and 400 injured in this bombing. In addition, there were reports of several bombardments that took place near the Al-Quds hospital in the Gaza Strip today, and several people were injured. Alongside this, the IDF is reporting that it had very intensive fighting in the Jabalia refugee camp and eventually managed to take over a Hamas stronghold in the area. This is different than the area that was bombarded, and that 50 Hamas operatives were killed in the battle. Throughout the day, the IDF suffered its first 2 casualties. This is after the attack on October 7th. These are the first 2 casualties in the invasion of the Gaza Strip. 2 soldiers were killed in the northern parts of Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry is reporting that 8,525 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip. Among these, upwards of 3,500 are children. It is also important to note that those figures came in prior to those major bombardments in Jabalia and in Nusirat, so it is currently unclear what the number is, but is likely to increase quite substantially. Moving on to some of the humanitarian aid, there is mounting pressure from the United States on Israel to facilitate the entrance of much more humanitarian aid. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is going to visit Israel on Friday, and today he published an article in the Wall Street Journal in which he said that while it is essential to defend Israel, it is equally essential to provide aid to the civilians in the Gaza Strip. In addition, it was reported that top officials in the United States, in communications with their counterparts in Israel, have said the ability to stop fuel from coming into Gaza, to the Gaza Strip, is diminishing. One of these days, fuel is going to have to come in. Hospitals are collapsing. UN facilities are crashing. Their generators do not have fuel. And the ability of the United States to continue to withstand international pressure and protect Israel on the one hand, internationally and diplomatically, but not allow fuel in, is diminishing day by day. In addition, it was reported today that Egypt has agreed to allow 80 injured non-combatant civilians to enter Egypt and receive medical aid. These are specifically 80 people who were injured in the different attacks in the Gaza Strip. That Israel has vetted the list and has confirmed that there are no Hamas operatives, and that is why they're going to be allowed to exit to Egypt in order to receive medical attention. This followed reports in the newspaper Al Arabi Al Jadid that Egypt is planning to set up a large field hospital in the Sinai Peninsula to possibly start giving more and more medical treatment to the different people who were injured in the Gaza Strip. In an interview today, Musa Abu Marzouk, who's one of the top leaders of Hamas, was asked in an interview with Russian TV, why isn't Hamas allowing civilians to hide in the tunnels from the bombardments? And he stated that the tunnels are built for attack purposes and they are built to defend Hamas from the bombardments, and that it is not the role of Hamas to defend uninvolved Gazans, that is the role of the United Nations, since most Gazans are refugees, and it is the responsibility of Israel as an occupying force. Regarding the actual humanitarian aid, a total of 60 trucks carrying food, water, and medical supplies entered the Gaza Strip today. That number is due to increase in the coming days following a deal between the United States, Egypt, and Israel. However, it has not increased yet. Moving on to the West Bank, the ongoing spirals of violence that are breaking out in the West Bank, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations today again stated that she is deeply concerned about the rising violence against Palestinians in the West Bank and called upon Israel to cooperate with the Palestinian Authority to try to rein this in. Regarding the IDF activity in the West Bank, 38 Palestinians were arrested today, including Nadir Sawafta, who is a known Hamas figure in the area of Tubas. In addition, 3 Palestinians were reported killed, including a 15-year-old in different collisions with the IDF. It was also reported today that the IDF is changing the law in the West Bank such that membership or assisting a terror organization, specifically Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Lions Den, or ISIS, will have a minimum of 1 year in prison. Responding to the bombardments in the Gaza Strip, different organizations in the West Bank have called for a day of rage tomorrow, and that includes usually confronting the IDF at different locales. Moving on to the north, compared to the last few days, it was relatively quiet. There were 2 anti-tank missiles that were fired at IDF outposts, and mortar fires targeted several areas in western Galilee and the areas of Tel Hai. Israel each time retaliated against the units that were launching the mortars or anti-tank missiles, as well as retaliated against several different targets of Hezbollah. In addition, Hezbollah published another video in which it's building the hype for the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah's anticipated speech on Friday. He has said this is going to be the first time he speaks since the war broke out, and Hezbollah just put out another video with the date and the time and building the hype to what he's going to say then. Some of the regional developments, the Houthi rebels today in Yemen fired over 4 missiles towards Israel, towards the southern town of Eilat. These were intercepted in air. A spokesperson for the Houthi army, Yahya Sari, then later stated that the movement will continue to attack Israel militarily as long as Israel continues the operation in the Gaza Strip. In addition, in Iraq, there were 2 suicide drones that targeted the Ain al-Assad base that is housing different U.S. Marines and international forces. A group called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq claimed responsibility. This is again one of the militias that is loyal to Iran. The Pentagon today announced that it is sending 300 more soldiers to the region, specifically not to Israel. It did not say where they are being sent to, but this is likely responding to these different developments. On to some of the political developments that occurred. Bolivia today suspended its relationship with Israel, something that was done in the past whenever Israel carried out major invasions of the Gaza Strip. And other countries like Colombia and Chile also said they're calling their ambassadors back for consultations. In addition, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, today stated that Israel has, I'm quoting, lost its mind, and it is carrying out crimes against humanity in Gaza. Also, China today removed the name Israel from its internal internet maps and from the site Alibaba, which again did this without publicly stating anything, but this is likely associated with the war. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh today met with Iranian foreign minister in Qatar. This is the second time the two have had a meeting, and this is likely associated with Hamas's increasing attempts to drag Hezbollah into the war and mount pressure on it, possibly through Iran. In addition to today, the United States stated that Hamas is now the biggest threat to its security since ISIS, as it is encouraging terrorism inside the United States. However, that statement also emphasized that there is absolutely no indication that Hamas plans or has capability to carry out attacks in the United States itself, but rather simply that its atmosphere is now considered a threat to the United States because it may encourage lone wolf or self-activated terrorism in this country. onto some of the future plans of the Gaza Strip that are being debated. So Israel today, it was reported, is putting a lot of pressure on Egypt to accept Palestinian refugees into Sinai. Now, yesterday, I reported of an internal document that was leaked in Israel that stated among different options the complete forced evacuation of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to Egypt. I said that this is highly unlikely, and it is still highly unlikely. However, it was reported today that Israel is trying to facilitate some sort of deal that will allow Egypt, at least temporarily, get Palestinians to evacuate to the Sinai Peninsula, and it was suggested that some of the international ways this may be facilitated is that Egypt's large debt to the World Bank will be erased in exchange for facilitating this. In addition, the Bloomberg Network today reported that in discussions between Israel and foreign powers, there are three more realistic options that are being debated for the future of Gaza. One is an international force made up of Arab, United States, British, German, and French units that will be positioned in Gaza in order to govern it, at least in some sort of intermediary time, currently undisclosed. The other is the establishment of some sort of peacekeeping force, like the model that exists in the Sinai Peninsula. And the third is a temporary government under UN auspices to govern the area. This is all now being reported because the United States is mounting heavy pressure on Israel to think about the next day. There's reportedly increasing concern in the United States that Israel has not thought out what is going to happen the day after it takes over the Gaza Strip and deposes Hamas, and the United States is mounting pressure on Israel to come up with a solution. According to the report in Bloomberg, Israel favors the second option, the establishment of a peacekeeping force like the model in Sinai in the Gaza Strip. However, again, all this is currently speculation. That is the report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.